What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Turn the Jets podcast. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at Will Pollard on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Badlands, TOJ Talks. There's a million different things. Football's back. No, we're back in pads. Everything. No, I'm just kidding. The Jets had open to the media OTA practice today. Aaron Rodgers lit it up a little bit. Had some comments. Robert Saleh, Nate Hackett. We'll get into all that. Zack Rosenblatt at the Athletic. Zach, how are we doing today, man? How is it being back at One Jets Drive?
It was great. Yeah, the weather, it was like training camp weather because it was like super hot out today. So it was nice. Aaron Rodgers was out there. I'd say they had pretty close to 90% attendance, which is pretty good for this time of the year. And some of the guys weren't there were either dealing with injuries or, I think Brees was there on day one, so it's not like he's like skipping. He probably had a reason kind of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's nobody holding out as far as I know. And the team, everybody looks good in shorts and jerseys right now. So, they look good on paper. They look good in person. But we'll see once real things happen.
Yeah, I guess I want to get to Rodgers because it's obviously the biggest talking point, right? I mean, we just in terms of him practicing and some of his comments. I want to start with just some of the comments of Saleh and Hackett and some of these guys. Getting to actually kind of ask them some questions. Obviously, we don't take everything with a grain of salt, but anything stand out to you just from speaking with Saleh and Hackett, and I guess Ulbrich, Ulbrich mentioning Isaiah Oliver moving to safety. I know there's a little things, but this time of year there's not as much. So did anything stand out from, I guess, those type of some of the from the three kind of top coaches speaking today at points?
The obvious stuff was addressed and or avoided altogether. Like the Hackett stuff obviously was asked about and everybody kind of talked around it. Hackett got a little testy when he was asked about it, but it was obviously a fair question if they were looking to hire somebody to reduce his role, which they were, which I reported obviously way back in January.
I was going to say, this has been a thing for a while. I don't know.
Even Connor has been like losing his mind about. We were talking about it today because he put it in like at the end of like a mailbag. And then it got aggregated to oblivion, and so everybody thought it was new.
Yeah,
he hopped on the plane to Florida, and he got all these texts about it. And he's like, "What do you mean? This isn't new information."
I reported this at the Senior Bowl. Yeah, this is not new.
Yeah. But anyway, I think one of the bigger things that was discussed today, and I don't know if anybody gave like an amazing answer. I think they all again talked around it, was the talk about Sauce traveling. Saleh kind of didn't really want to address it. I don't think Ulbrich was asked about it. And Sauce kind of like alluded to wanting to be considered one of the best. He pretty much implying that he knows that in order to be one of the best, you have to travel probably, which I don't know if that's necessarily true anymore, honestly, especially if you have a good corner on the other side, which they do. So I think that would be like the most interesting thing. The Isaiah Oliver thing is interesting because, I kind of pegged him for corner. I'd heard from somebody that he was more of a safety, and I didn't really think they were moving him to safety. And now that they are, it makes the battle at backup safety interesting. The top three guys are locks. Oliver is a lock to make the team based on his contract. So that gives you four safeties already. And so are you going to keep five? And if you are, is it Bernard Converse? Is it Jay Key? Is it Jarius Monroe, who I think is an intriguing guy, UDFA? These are potential special teams guys. That's 2 draft picks in there. Joe Douglas doesn't usually like cutting draft picks. So I'm curious to see what they do at safety now. It's not like a huge deal. It's more fascinating to someone like me and you who probably overanalyze the roster. But I'm always interested in like those bottom of the roster guys, like which ones, obviously special teams becomes more important. And, 4 safeties is already usually enough for most teams. But, if they keep 5, I don't know. They have a lot of guys that have special teams backgrounds at other positions. So that'd be interesting. But off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything else significant. ABT not practicing yet, but that's not like a huge deal. Mike Williams obviously not practicing yet. Olu was back at practice, which is good. Tyron was practicing and he looked amazing, which is obviously great. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of, I think to their credit, outside of Aaron Rodgers, they're trying to be quieter this offseason, whereas I think they were very loud last offseason, puffing their chest out before they'd accomplished anything.
Yeah, they said polar opposite.
Yeah, and they regretted it. I think Saleh in particular, but in general, I think everybody's trying to throttle back. Maybe eventually it'll start breaking through again once the games start. But yeah, they're really trying not to make any waves. So I think they've done it. They've really efforted to not make sound bites as much as they have in the past, I would say.
Yeah. No, I think, you mentioned a couple of things there that, obviously we can kind of hit on.
Yeah.
One, the forced safety situation, it's been a spot where post June 1, we're going to see people sign here in early June, late June. Some of these guys, the Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs of the world, by moving Isaiah Oliver. I think the Jets were probably likely not in that market anyways, but there is always a shot, right? Quandre Diggs, scheme and staff familiarity. He's obviously, him and DJ retweet each other nonstop. And obviously, again, most of that's kind of bullshit. It doesn't really matter. But sometimes guys, veterans will stand on the tables for other guys and, potentially could push something over the line. I think you feel okay about the Jets safety room, probably not the best about it, but it's also not if the Jets' worst positions are safety and tight end 3, you'll figure it out. But yeah, as you mentioned, if I have a hard time seeing them keep more than 4. And again, that kind of makes it even more confusing why you took a safety on the last pick of the draft. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's the last pick of the draft. It's I don't know. Ashton Davis is still 25 years old. Chuck Clark, I guess that's the real one that'll be interesting to see is what really is Chuck Clark, because coming off, he's not a super young player. He's a guy that was a good player in Baltimore, but the Jets still got him for a conditional 7th round pick, the following year. He's coming off a major injury. Tony Adams, what's he look like in year 2 as a starter? And there's a bunch of different things there. So, and then you mentioned the Sauce traveling thing, and of course, every aggregator under the sun had the Sauce Gardner's matchups in 2024, and it's yeah, man, he's been the best corner in football for 2 years. This is kind of what happens. I don't think Sauce needs to travel to I think he needs to take the ball away more. I think that's something that
I agree. Yeah.
I think that's something that will get people to kind of shut up a little bit. Because a lot of his accolades are around passes defended, not giving up catches, passer rating, things like that, which to the average fan in the least condescending way possible doesn't really mean as much as an interception. So capitalizing on that,
it's kind of like with sacks and pressures. You can hype up Bryce Huff's
I was gonna say
pressures, and then he finally gets sacked, and all of a sudden everybody loves him. So yeah, and Quinnen was like that too.
Before. Yeah, Quinnen was like that too, and even Hassan Reddick hit points early on in his career. This is what happens with some of these guys. Revis had end up. It's weird. Early on in his career, got a bunch of interceptions, and then started getting less. And whatever. That's the whole different conversation. But the conversation is kind of stupid in a sense because Sauce traveled at points last year. The Chargers game, he traveled with Keenan Allen a bunch on third downs, and the Jets didn't lose that game because the defense didn't play well in Sauce. It just, they might see it at certain points, but I don't make as much of it. I know people have already been asking, what are you going to do week 1 with Ayuk and Debo? Is Sauce going to travel? I'm I don't know, man. Maybe, but that's not going to win them or lose them the game. It's going to be kind of tackling space. And I want to get to, again, I'm going to leave Rodgers as a bigger talking point because he spoke today, said some things that I think actually are kind of interesting. And then obviously practice. I want to get one quick schedule kind of reaction from you before we get into the rest of OTAs. If you take out the travel aspect and the fact that for you going to have to cover these games and you're going to be getting home super late and I'm going to be driving from Long Island, getting home even later than you. We'll actually probably be getting home at the same time. You'll finish your articles and I'll doing a live pod in the car. Besides that actual fact, the actual early season first 11 weeks of the schedule is really not that bad. If you just look up straight opponents, they should start quite well, especially the first 5 or 6 weeks. San Francisco and Buffalo, yes, but Minnesota you should expect to beat. You're going to be playing Denver and potentially Zach Wilson or Bo Nix. New England's awful. Tennessee is not very good. New staff. This actual opponent early on in the year, the first 11 weeks really, most of them home games, they should start out well, depending on obviously health and other things. I know people are focused on week 1, but I think overall, right, the schedule breaks kind of nicely for them by actual opponents, standards, not just the primetime stuff.
I definitely agree with you on paper, obviously, and based on last year. I will say, I think we all do this every year. We maybe overemphasize the year before when we're looking at. If you just look at the quarterbacks, I think is where you can look at it and be there's a lot of question marks at these quarterbacks. But if JJ McCarthy's good right away, or Bo Nix, or Will Levis is good, we don't know if these guys are going to take a leap. I don't think they are necessarily, but we're all wrong all the time about like a couple teams a year. So I don't go in anymore looking at a schedule. Like every year, it's the opposite. You think that there's a stretch that's easy and the stretch that's hard, and then the opposite is what happens. So that's what I would say to that. But I am concerned about the schedule part of it, though. Like I think it's legit, especially with the construction of this Jets roster. You have a 40-year-old quarterback. I mean, everybody knows you have a 40-year-old quarterback coming off Achilles. You have the Tyron Smith stuff, Morgan Moses, Elijah Vera Tucker. I mean, John Simpson wasn't practicing today. I don't know what that was because we saw it after Salah talked. They have these guys with injury histories and short rest, and they don't really hit very much in training camp anymore. They do a pretty light training camp, and Salah made it seem like they're going to keep doing that. So I am concerned, especially that beginning stretch, those 3 and 11 days. If they get out of that and they're 2-1 and they're pretty healthy, then I think I'm going to feel really good about this team. If they don't get out of that and they're 1-2 or 0-3, I don't think they're going to be 0-3. That would be obviously a disaster if they were. But I'm saying worst case scenario, what you have to prepare for as a Jets fan and as a Jets person covering this team. Then I'll be concerned. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is keeping Rodgers healthy ultimately, even more than the other guys. So if he can get through that stretch and then you get through the rest of the stretch where you're going to London and you have a couple other short weeks, the late bye, if they can stay as healthy as you can possibly stay through 11 games, like the week 12 bye is going to be a godsend. But if they are struggling with injuries left and right, which they have the last 2 years, then the week 12 bye is a concern. So these are obviously non-football factors, but that's kind of like the way this Jets roster is constructed. Like football-wise, they should be as good as anybody in the league, but there are these other things they have to consider because they have health and age-related issues with some of these guys.
Yeah, no, I think, something you mentioned there, that the late bye, it's always an interesting choice. I think people saw the Packers last year, not take the bye, and it ended up working in their favor. They had the later bye, then they got really hot at the end there. It's a copycat league, right? Teams used to always, even the Jets 3 or 4 years ago went over to London. The Jaguars are now spending almost 3 full weeks in London and getting acclimated, and teams are coming over the day before. Buffalo, that didn't work. So I'll be interested to see the Jets travel for that game. The Tennessee game, what do they do for travel? Do they come back all to the East Coast and then go home and then come back? Like, these are things that I know are nerdy, whatever, loser stuff to think about, but it does matter. Like, it matters to these guys, let alone I will be interested with the late bye too. The Jets have, under Salah, been really bad out of the bye. And they'll have a Seattle team coming cross country for a 1:00 kickoff. And I don't know, you could convince me pretty easily the Jets are 9-2 at the bye. Maybe they aren't that, but I'm just saying, if you look at the schedule, they're favored in 10 of those 11 games. If you just went based off of just Vegas odds, you'd be like, oh, they should be really good, a first or second place team come the bye. And then you have this stretch of West Coast teams coming east. They go play a bunch of division opponents. It's a lot of stuff we'll talk about further on. I guess I'll stop leaving the Rodgers stuff. I want to talk about Rodgers actually on the field today, and then we can kind of just talk a few about some of the comments and stuff. What'd you make of it? It sounded like he was unbelievable today and looked like Aaron Rodgers. Am I overstating it in any way? I mean, I know it's helmets practice and but it does matter. It does matter for a guy who hasn't played football in over a year at this point.
Yeah. So I'd say definitely the reaction has maybe been a little too extreme, and I think Connor probably purposely did that with all his fire emojis and
then
and
Diana
shit.
tweets it, and it's like, reports are, it was good stuff.
I know it's everybody feeding into the beast at this time of the year, and I get it. He definitely looked like he did at this time last year, I would say. Before he had his little calf thing that happened that freaked everybody out. But I will say his ability to thread the needle on throws remains elite, and it's so fun to watch at practice. He did not really throw the ball down the field much in team drills. It was mostly in the middle of the field or short passes to the running back, stuff like that. So it's not like they were really stressing the defense necessarily. He did have some throws that were, tight window throws. Like I said, threading the needle. He had one to Garrett Wilson for a touchdown where CJ Mosley was draping him in coverage. He actually threw him behind Garrett that Garrett amazingly adjusted his body to get. He had a nice throw to Xavier Gibson that probably would have been a long touchdown. He definitely looks good. He didn't really have to move around that much yet. This time of the year it's hard to evaluate D-line and O-line a lot because it's they're going pretty slow. Although I will say, I don't know if you're going to ask anything like this. Eric Watts I thought stood out quite a bit today. I wrote about that today a little bit. But yeah, anyway, he has command of the offense. He runs the show. He's got great accuracy. It's just a matter of how much he can move when the game started and how much he can take hits, because he's going to have to take hits. But no reason to be negative coming out of that. He looked good, and hopefully we see him throw some deep balls as camp progresses, or they try and hide that until training camp or whatever. But very, very promising. You wouldn't have known that he was injured by watching him, I would say.
I was gonna say, did you? I mean, I think Dennis posted a video of him. We didn't get to see him run much today, right? I mean, it looked like he did one sprint, and warm ups and stuff like that.
They were doing some drills where they were like, rolling out and stuff like that. But yeah, there was not a lot of running, and that's why it's hard to for me to completely say he's back. Like, we need to see how he moves more when there's actual pressure coming. But yeah, he. In terms of physically and throwing the ball, he looked great for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I really have no concerns of it. The arm, the brain, any of that stuff. It's literally, he's always been a quarterback that has relied so much on. He can play from the pocket. He's won an MVP just being a pocket guy in 2022, and he did it, or 2021, and he did it, some in one of his first MVP years, but. He also is he likes to ad-lib a lot, and he likes to move around the pocket and hold the ball forever because he likes to do a lot of off-schedule stuff, and that's the stuff where it is going to matter more about the legs and the Achilles and the calf, and he probably has lost the step. He did run a lot. He is not a guy that he's not Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. He's not a statue. Yeah, he's never been that. That's why I think it's more of a concern, right? Than if it was Brady and he's coming off an Achilles, who gives a shit, right? It really wouldn't have mattered because he's not going to run or move anyways. Rodgers likes to move around. He holds the ball. He's got great footwork. That's his thing. So I think that's really the only concern I have is just keeping those muscles and tendons healthy, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sure. And there's legit. I think there's legit reason to be skeptical, even because if you look at the history of the NFL. Especially quarterbacks of his age coming off injury like that, it just never happened before. And I know, he's always trying to defy the odds and, give him his doubters and all that stuff. But that is a fact. He would be the first one to come back at this age and be great as he was before. So, and they don't need him to be as great as he was before. They need him to be, even if he's 2022 Aaron Rodgers, they're in great shape because they had the worst quarterback play in the league, arguably the last 2 years. So, but you brought him in to be a superstar, and you hope that he can come back from this injury. And we haven't been given a reason to think that he can't yet, but other than the history of the NFL, so the history is against him. And if he accomplishes this, then it's going to be an amazing year, and we're going to be talking about this year for a long time because they have the talent to be great. But the biggest question around this team is just going to be how Aaron Rodgers is. And if he's on the decline, I don't think he necessarily is, but if he can physically get through a season is the biggest question.
Yeah, and I think it's a conversation we're going to have a million times, and it's not going to stop until we see it. That's the biggest key. I talked about this morning. It's just the one thing with Rodgers that this Jets team in general that makes it so difficult is on paper, if everyone plays the back of their baseball card, it's probably a 12 or 13 win team. They're really that good. But I have no idea what they're going to look like from any type of situation because we quite literally have no idea. We know the defense will be really good. We know Brees and Garrett and even Mike Williams. I have no idea what Mike Williams is going to look like. He might look like the first 3 weeks of Mike Williams last year where he was unbelievable. Every analytic and every stat, all the film is unbelievable from last year. But he gets hurt, and then he's a 30-year-old receiver coming off an ACL at 6'4". I have no fucking clue. In terms
they need a lot of things to go right this year for sure. And obviously, I think if you're a Jets fan, it's fair to be skeptical that all the things will go right. But the trio of Tyron Smith, Mike Williams, and Aaron Rodgers is the biggest key. And if two of the three of those guys stay healthy, ideally Tyron and Aaron, if you had to pick two.
It's definitely two of the three. They're more.
But 2 of the 3 in general, I think you're in really good shape because I think Mike Williams is quite good when he's healthy. But we haven't even seen him out there, so we have no idea what he looks like. We have no idea if he has the same explosion. It's all theoretical. But if he does, he's an underrated receiver in the NFL.
100%. Rodgers obviously spoke today, hit on a lot of, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of the answers were pretty much chalk.
Yeah.
One positive answer that is nothing to do with politics or doubters that I thought was super important was he just talked about how getting back out there and practicing with people around him and regardless hitting or not, and no one's going to get close to Rodgers, but it's still coming back from an injury like this, yes, it's physical, as we just mentioned, right? But this time of year, it's a lot of mental of like,
Yeah.
Moving around and trusting that your leg is the way it used to be and all that stuff. It's going to be something for AVT too. It's going to be a mental thing. It's going to be mental for Mike Williams. I thought that was an important answer of just him kind of actually acknowledging that like it is kind of a big deal, and it is every rep he's taking. Why he needs to be there for OTAs is because A, they need to build chemistry, but B, like he needs to be really comfortable moving around with his leg. Like it's not. I don't know if that answers to that to you at all. I just thought that was interesting from like we don't talk about the mental side of injuries a lot, and that's something I went through when I got hurt, and I was nowhere near Aaron Rodgers or any of these guys, but like it took a while to be like, you go jump for a ball and you're like, I'm not going to blow out my leg here. And like, I don't know if that stood out to you at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty normal. I mean, you think about Brees coming off his ACL is kind of the same thing.
Yeah, you can tell he didn't trust it early on in the year. In that Denver game, it felt like it clicked.
Yeah. But with Rodgers, like he's not going to get hit until week 1 or preseason, hypothetically. I'm curious to see if they play him in the preseason or not. They might not put him in bubble wrap, but I mean, he won't know how the first hit feels until it happens, and so I think that'd be my biggest concern there. Like,
even like joint practices, it'll be like one step closer, but it still won't be the real thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're going to be playing against a great 49ers defensive line with an offensive line that you could argue is essentially complete 5 different. I was talking about this with somebody today. I think Connor actually. Like even Joe Tippmann and AVT are returning, but I don't think they even started next to each other at all last year because by the time AVT went down, I think Joe Tippmann was either just becoming a starter or he hadn't yet. So you have 5 guys who have not played together.
He wasn't even starting at center, then he was starting at right guard.
He was at right guard. So you have 5 guys who haven't played a snap together. They're probably going to be in and out of the lineup in training camp. Tyron Smith's not going to practice every day. Morgan Moses is not going to practice every day. We'll see AVT. You would hope he does. John Simpson, Joe Tippmann. I mean, you're getting Olu some reps, obviously, which is valuable. But yeah, so you're going to have an offensive line, completely new group. As we've seen, the Jets have not done well with an offensive line does not have experience together. Like it's understandable to have growing pains, but you're playing week 1, maybe the best defensive line you'll play all year. So my point being, like, Aaron is going to get hit that game. He's probably going to get sacked. Fans are going to get mad. And we just need to see how he gets up from those sacks, how he responds to it that day, and how it feels the next day. And so those, like all the stuff in training camp, like there probably will be some scary moments where he comes close to getting hit or somebody barrels into him by accident. Like stuff like that will be a test. But it's ultimately going to be, and I mean, him playing in the humidity of the middle of the summer too will also be interesting too, because that does factor in. But yeah, week 1 is really where we're going to find out how he's going to respond to the contact, because the Achilles is an injury that can linger in certain ways. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, the one thing I've talked a lot about this last couple of weeks, and I just want to get to his comments before we wrap here, but he's done a lot of things that he will never, maybe if you get Aaron Rodgers after a few drinks or whatever, he'll admit, but like he's done a lot of things similar to Tom Brady the last 12 months. He's gone through new team, total different personality, the way his real personality is. We never saw Brady in New England. All of a sudden he goes to Tampa, he's a different guy. It's obviously same thing with Rodgers. We've seen them start to do a lot more media. Tom Brady, no one talks about it, did a lot of the stuff with Jim Gray, and that was a weekly thing and took a lot of shots at guys and all these different things. Words has obviously done his fair share of podcasts, their opportunities, or whatever he called it today, which was funny. This is a good twist on words. He should write a book, man, because like he's got some nice. He looks up in some synonyms in the dictionary. He's also, he took the pay cut. He talks about 3 or 4 more years now, which will put him at 45 years old, and all these different things, right? There's just been a lot. Something Brady did a lot later in his career was if he even saw anyone coming, he got down. He's just like lived to fight another play. And I would be really curious if Rodgers now, after last year getting hurt while getting sacked, you just mentioned it there, does he just like kind of eat it on some of these plays and say like, fuck it, like if we have to punt here, we have to punt. Like I know he's super prideful, but it's probably not the worst idea. The playoff game may be different, but I don't know, early on in the year, like maybe just take a sack. Have you like thought about that at all? I just when you just brought that up about getting hit.
It's honestly a great point that I hadn't thought of, and that's a good question. I don't know when we're going to talk to him again. Probably not till training camp, I would guess, but I'm sure he'll be disgusted by the question while also maybe secretly planning to do it because he is very smart. So that is a very interesting point. I didn't even think about it. I honestly didn't watch like every Brady game in Tampa, but he obviously stayed healthy for a reason. So,
Yeah, like
um,
he was like weighing like 150 pounds by the end there.
yeah.
He looked
Well,
emaciated.
he also probably does some crazy stuff like getting dolphin blood injected into himself or whatever. But well, Rodgers listens to them fornicate, so it all goes back
Yeah,
to Dolphins.
he's,
But
I don't know.
anyway, that's
Ro-
an interesting point. Yeah,
any other Rogers comments that stood out? He obviously addressed the VP thing. He spoke about Hackett. He spoke about Salah being more involved in the offense. Is there anything else that kind of stood out there, or was it really just the VP stuff? Which was, I knew
I mean,
that. Of course, he
I
was
think
going
the
to answer it
Salah,
that way.
yeah. I think Salah being more involved, I think was because they've all tried to. Woody kind of alluded to that at the owners' meetings, I believe. Oh no, or maybe it was at his like red carpet interview thing. I can't remember.
I
I
think
think
he
he
said it at the
exactly what he said.
NFL honors. He
Yeah,
said
I
it,
think
and
that's when he
then
said that Salah was going to be more involved. And then when we asked Robert about it, he kind of downplayed it. He said, "I'm involved in all areas," and so we didn't think about it again. And then Rodgers made it clear that that was not entirely accurate because he said he's been to my left a lot more this offseason and he has a lot of ideas and stuff like that. And that's, if they weren't going to bring in somebody, which they tried to, obviously, Robert needed to get more involved in the offense because Hackett is frankly not going to cut it just as the year lone play caller. And I know Aaron is going to be very involved, but they were not prepared for the worst case scenario last year. And I think one of their goals this year is to be more prepared for the worst case scenario. So if Rodgers goes down, they have more of a plan. They have plays that can work with either him or Tyrod, and it doesn't matter. At least you have Tyrod too. He's obviously going to have a better grasp on any playbook you throw at him. There's questions about whether he can stay healthy because of the way he plays, but ultimately, I think Robert being more involved is not a bad thing. He comes from the 49ers background. He has a good football mind. He hasn't really been involved on the offensive side of the ball very much. And he's kind of, to his credit, he's always let his coordinators run the show in their divisions. Then he kind of pops in, or he makes the big game decisions and stuff like that. But when the floor was here, he was running the offense. He let Hackett run the offense last year, which wound up being a mistake. He lets Ulbrich run the defense, and that's been an absolutely big success, obviously. So it's a little bit changed for him, and I'm curious to see. This kind of opens the door for if it's a disaster on offense. Is there some point where Salah just takes over play calling? Like, I don't know. I don't know if he actually would do that, but it's something that you have to have in the back of your mind if things are not going well at the beginning of the year, and whether that's with Rodgers or if you have to have Tyrod in there for some reason. They need to do what's best for the team, and if that means whether it's reducing Hackett's role or stripping him of the duties or whatever it is, like they got to come, or Todd Downing, like maybe takes more of a role. I don't know, like one of those things. But if it's as bad as it was last year with Hackett, then you got to consider all options. And clearly, Salah felt like something needed to change, or he wouldn't have talked to all these coaches, and he wouldn't have gotten more involved in offense. So,
Yeah. No, you mentioned it there. Something that I heard a lot from people in the Jets building all off season. I mean, you talked about this a bunch, but everything was prepared, and we saw this a lot last year when the offense had decent games, which there was some games where the offense looked decent or Zach looked okay or whatever. There wasn't a lot of them. The Texans game, right? Like the Texans did exactly what the Jets thought was going to happen, and the offensive game plan worked well, and like they were able to have success. The biggest issue they had last year was they expected a defense to do one thing. The Jets game planned all week against that. And the second that defense was not doing was not working, or they weren't doing exactly what the Jets thought they were going to do, there was no plan B or C. And as you mentioned there, it's a lot about Rodgers being healthy, but it's not even just Rodgers being healthy. Like they have to prepare that, like they think that some team's going to play cover 4 all game. Well, they didn't. They're lined up in one and they're blitzing the shit out of you. Like you got to figure it out and call different plays. And I think that's where that's the other concern I have is just like adjusting to other teams. Like, yeah, the Jets are going to do well against the guys that Salah's worked with in the past because they run the same damn defense as the Jets, and it's not really as complex of a scheme. It's playing against some of these other teams that mix coverages and do different blitz and simulated pressures, et cetera, that the Jets are just going to have to be prepared for. Last question, and before I wrap here, anything to you that you kind of can see happening the rest of the offseason before we go into camp here? Anything? I mean, if Michael Carter gets extended, I wouldn't be shocked there. At some point, maybe in June or July. Other than that, maybe it's 1 or 2 veterans that are small. It's bringing back an interior offensive lineman. I feel like, right? I don't see much happening. Justin Jefferson's not going to be a Jet. Maybe he will in 3 years, but would have a hard time believing that this is going to happen. So anything else? I guess you have to squash it at this point. Devontae Adams won't happen until the middle of the year. That's another one that keeps floating around. But
Yeah.
anything else? Did I miss anything there?
I don't see anything major happening. And I'm not as confident that an extension will happen. I don't know that they're going to extend anybody. Even, not saying I don't think they should. I think they should. Him and DJ. But I don't get the impression that they're in a rush to do anything like that. Yeah, and in terms of free agents, like Joe is always bound to bring in a veteran on like the minimum or close to it, closer to training camp. Quan Alexander would be maybe the level of player that you could say, and I think some of it will have to do if anybody, like Chuck Clark gets hurt last year, they go and get Adrian Amos. If somebody gets hurt, but yeah, now that they move Isaiah Oliver to safety, I feel less. I mean, I thought maybe before they would bring in a veteran as like competition, but now I maybe don't feel as good about that. They do lack some depth at linebacker. I would argue they need another interior offensive lineman, maybe a Connor McGovern type. And yeah, I mean, I think it mostly depends on health. I mean,
I was going to say receivers, maybe the only one if Mike Williams is like set
yeah,
back.
but I feel like they're. I mean, they talk about Jason Brownlee in such a way that they think he's a stud. I don't know if that's bullshit or not. Probably is. And there is Al Lazard is on the roster, and he's probably not going anywhere. I was going to say
that's one of those ones that's like so weird. Like honestly, you just don't even talk about him like he's on the roster. It's insane.
It is.
It's like a top 5 highest paid guy on the roster, and no one gives a shit.
Yeah. But he's gonna have to play. I mean, he's probably gonna get a lot of first team reps in camp. So because Mike Williams won't practice at the beginning, and he'll be limited even when he is back. So get prepared for that, Jets fans. But yeah, so those would be like the areas I would say. I don't expect any major splash, but Joe's always going to work the free agency, try and find guys on cheaper deals. You hope they don't go and make a signing. I'd say running back, I wouldn't rule out either. Like if there's any veterans, I don't even know if there's any left at this point that are even that good. But if there's a running back that breaks free, maybe it's more when guys get cut from the 53s and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say like linebacker, running back, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I was actually meant to ask you about this because we haven't talked since, well, me and you have talked, but not on a pod since pre-draft. Now that I've sat on it this is a whole nother topic, I've sat on it for a month though, I do feel like their draft raised the floor a little bit of this year. I don't know necessarily if it raised the ceiling, but like Tyron Smith was a huge concern, and now having Olu as like a guy who's going to practice every day, who's going to get first team reps all camp and every day during the week, like that is important. And then the Corley pick, I think, is one that like will probably not be quite as impactful that week by week, but like it does. The receiver was in need, and that's so clearly a Rodgers pick, like to a T. Like I'm finding myself Randall Cobb, like from 12 years ago. Do you feel the same way, just like having sat on it now before we wrap here? I know it's a little hard to kind of judge any type of these guys because they've played in pads yet in the NFL.
Yeah, I haven't really seen anything. It's too hard to say yet. Ask me again after a couple practices. But yeah, I think once I get a little more look at these guys, I'll be able to evaluate them better. But I mean, I'm high on both those guys. I think they're both going to be pretty good players. So I am very excited to see them in camp.
Any vacations? Any good stuff planned for June once you can once you can travel a little bit? Get out of Jersey.
It's wedding season for us. I'm going to be going to California for a wedding, going to Lake Tahoe for a bachelor party, got a wedding in New York, going back out to California again for something else. Yeah, busy June, but that's the time of year to do it. So.
Lake Tahoe in June. That's maybe you can play some. You should play some golf with Rodgers. Maybe a couple chocolate gummies. I appreciate it. I appreciate you hopping on, everybody, for joining. I'll be posting this up tonight. I'll be back later in the week, and then TOJ Talk Saturday. Make sure you guys are tuning in anything Zach's got coming out, and enjoy helmet practices in May, and we'll talk to you guys later this week.